Very good morning and welcome to yet an interesting day to be alive and thankful for all of God's blessings. And of course, life is beautiful. The way you look at it is how you are going to get it. No matter how situations may turn, no matter the twists and turns of life, definitely every day houses new opportunities for us to, aspire, for us to go ahead and fulfill visions and those aspirations. My name is Francis Oyimaidet, and I'm excited to welcome you to the Tuesday edition of Rise and Shine, coming to you live on Spectrum Television. Of course, we're beaming live from Uyo, the beautiful capital city of Akwa Ibom State. Of course, right now, if we had to go with the excitement in the air, the Christmas park had kick-started, and lots of fanfare, lots of activities, happening day in, day out. And if you have not visited Akwa Ibom before, I think this is the right time for you to visit and get to experience hospitality and warm ambience. Of course, the peaceful environment that we have, courtesy of the warm, loving people of Akwa Ibom State. That's literally like me marketing my state, yeah? Yes, when you have something that you're proud of, you definitely would have to, learn your voice to letting the world know that, yes, this is yours and you are proud of it. But of course, on Rise and Shine, while encouraging you to join the conversation on social media platform across all platforms at spectrumtvlive.ng, we'll always also encourage you to take advantage of the phone lines and, of course, reach out to us, as we will be delighted to hear from you this morning, as always. And on Rise and Shine, we're here every day to talk Nigeria, take you around the latest developments and happenings from within and outside the shores of the country. As long as that, conversation borders on our collective growth and development, we'll definitely be bringing it on. And we'll look into all the different angles that Nigerians might possibly be considering on these different issues.
Of course, it's a beautiful Tuesday morning. My mind is already on Wednesday, Francis, and I can hear how much you've talked about the Christmas village. I can only say but one thing, that you have been there. Of course, my name is Uyanek, and it's beautiful Tuesday morning, a great day to be alive. And of course, to continue to count our blessings one by one. It's been a long journey in the year 2023, but suffice us to say that God has been good to each and every one of us. Of course, it's Rise and Shine, and we are here to do what you love the most. And we are very thankful that you are the most engaging community of persons that we have on the terrestrial television space and even on the internet. So please do take advantage of our social media platforms, all of which you can find at spectrumtvlive.ng. The likes, the shares, the comments really go a long way to help us spread the good work that we know that we are doing on Spectrum Television. And also, we have our phone lines oftentimes displayed in the course of the program. Please take advantage of that. Call us, send us your WhatsApp messages, your concerns, your contribution, or the myriad of issues that will be raised. And today's Rise and Shine is going to be no different, as we have quite a number of issues that we are going to be looking at this morning. Particularly the conversation around tax waivers is a big one that we have had in the last couple of years, and we're going to be having an expert to break down and explain what these tax waivers brought to bear by the FIRS is going to mean. A couple of other conversations, of course, this morning that we have lined up for you. Surprising, well, I won't say this is surprising, but there was a near coup that almost happened in Guinea-Bissau, which has also seen the president of that country overhaul his parliamentary, members. We also see the fact that 2,000 workers' November salaries withheld. Some other issues that we have here: cash shortage hits banks. Upon all that, the Central Bank of Nigeria has continued to say. We'll be looking into the details shortly. We also see Peter Obi of the Labour Party faulting the 15 billion naira allocation for the Vice President's residence. Of course, a conversation we will be looking into this morning. Federal government gives new figures on sponsored delegates to COP28. Remember yesterday, figures that came out said it was less than 100. Trust me, by this morning, there are new numbers. We also see here, with regards to the 2024 budget, we see Tajuddin Abbas, leader of the House of Representatives, telling Nigerians to be constructive with their criticism. These and more are some of the conversations we'll be having on Rise and Shine this morning. We head straight to our flash news. Stay with us.
Rise and shine. Rise and shine. Rise and shine. Rise and shine. Rise and shine.
Starting off with a very flash story this morning where we see that 2,000 workers' November salaries have been withheld over irregularities bordering on the usage of the IPPIS. We see that the salaries of federal government ministries, departments and agencies have been withheld, of course, as a result of the irregularities in the IPPIS. And according to a spokesperson from the Federal Ministry of Defense, of course, the public service rules which forbid civil servants from speaking. As a result of the irregularities found in the IPPIS, of 2,000 federal civil servants have not been able to get their salaries for the month of November. The civil servants said they are still trying to sort the issues, and it borders on percentage of the civil servant arrears and other discrepancies that have been visibly felt within the platform of the integrated payroll and personal information. Of course, the longest time we've had different government employees speaking against the usage of the IPPIS. One of the issues that was put forward by ASU during the 8-month-long strike was the discontinuance of the IPPIS as far as payment of salaries was concerned. Of course, we've also seen situations where as a result of the IPPIS, money that was meant for staffs were not paid directly, and some of the fraudulent activities or illegal activities happening within the IPPIS has also been highlighted, which is why ASU had said it did not trust the system, the payment system, and needed something else, and other issues that have risen from it. But looking at the number, 2,000 civil servants not being able to get their November salaries, it's rather alarming at this point in time, especially when you consider the economic realities that we are facing as a nation. I mean, the average civil servant salary does not even take the person throughout the month. And now you're talking about getting into the 5th or the 4th day in the month already, past the 4th day in the month, and then still not being able to get your salaries. Wonder how the civil servants are, being able to get by.
Now, the issue here is that this delay will not be unconnected to a recent verification exercise conducted by the Office of the Head of the Civil Service of the Federation, and also, of course, seeing the fact that with regards to the certain percentage of civil servants having their salary withheld owing to these discrepancies on the platform of the integrated payroll and personal information system. Now, a certain kind of verification was conducted recently, and we've been having these conversations from even the permanent secretary and the head of the civil service of the federation, saying that this was going to happen. But 2,000 workers within the payroll of the federal government not getting the salaries as and when due is a problem. Now, the biggest question will not be, yes, it's been delayed in the first 4 days of December. Oftentimes these salaries are paid between the 25th and the 27th, topmost the end of a month, but it's has gone into the next month. The big question will not only be, now that it's delayed because of the IPPS, what next? We need to know the window of time it's going to take the civil service to be able to rectify what the issue is, and for these people to be paid their salaries for the month of November. Of course, we're already journeying into several days into the month of December. If it takes on into the middle of the month, we're going to be seeing a lot of problems, and we see that 2,000 is quite a number of persons not to be having their remuneration coming at when due. An average of that person will be earning a minimum wage, which is about 30,000 naira. Francis, you're talking about the fact that salaries take you through a month. People literally spend their salaries between a couple of hours. Make it, if you're too good, you spend it within a week, because by this time the salaries have not come. Remember that certain persons have already had to borrow to pay transportation to go to work. People have had to borrow to feed their children, all kinds of things in the system. So when we see that salaries are miserly, it's also important that they come as at when due, so that people can go ahead to use it in the way that they please for themselves. But another thing we must also look into is that hope that these discrepancies are not such that in the long run, Francis, it would totally affect these people not having their salaries at all. Saying that it is delayed because of irregularities on the IPPIS is one thing. What would the result of the discrepancies being found be? We hope that it's not going to be a matter of saying that these 2,000 persons for one situation or the other are not worthy of also getting their salaries. But we see that the national president of the Association of Senior Civil Servants, Tommy Etum, reported that the civil service of the federation had already started working on the issues. So hopefully that within the week, of course today being Tuesday, hopefully before Friday, we will stay on this report and be sure that these 2,000 persons have been paid their salaries. Of course, he had earlier warned that about 5,000 civil servants risked forfeiture of their November salaries. Now, this is exactly what I'm saying. Saying that 2,000 person salaries have been delayed is one thing. In the next couple of days, we hope that it's not going to be a matter of, with the discrepancies that we found, the salaries have to be forfeited. That's another issue that is really on the table this morning.
Well, how do you forfeit the salaries of people who have worked, have paid their dues, just because there is a discrepancy? Remember, when this issue of verification of IPPIS came up, I had said, if the federal government is really sincere about getting its workers to, verify or do upgrade in whatever system under whatever platform, they need to be deliberate about it. Because when you look at the average age of the civil servant, you're looking at not a generation that are very technologically savvy. You're looking at a group of persons who might not even be on Android phones or be able to utilize, the level of technology that the federal government is employing. So it needs time, it needs care, it needs consideration, it needs public awareness. This is something that literally we should have happening across the different ministries, departments, and agencies of government, probably having, offices and desks designated to handling these issues. But in the event that that has not been done so far, we should be able to see the government still having, the ability and capabilities to extend that olive branch, to give enough time, ample time for people who have not verified to be able to do so. Let's not forget that the money for the civil servants' salaries had been budgeted for. And then, of course, when you say money that had been budgeted for, released for payment, will not be paid or will be forfeited, you're raising a whole lot of questions. What would that money then be used for? And how do you explain not paying people who have served, who have worked for their money? I mean, it's totally against labor laws. It's totally against everything that is morally right. So rather than think about forfeiture, the federal government needs to look into finding ways to ensure everybody is given the enabling environment to verify. For the time being, things are insisting on the IPPIS to make sure everybody gets verified, every information gets updated and sorted out as quick as possible, because the economy is already biting, and wanting to make it a lot harder on Nigerian workers would be the height of insensitivity on the part of government.
Of course, the verification we are even talking about here borders on their date of birth and also the date of first appointment by the federal government. And there's a funny twist to this. We also see the fact that there were people who had been verified but were mistakenly delisted, and of course have had their salaries restored. So we're even saying even the people that are manning the systems for the IPPIS, they do not have, quite have a good handle on it. You finish verifying people, delist them and start the process, afresh. But when people are working, the verification process for this date of birth and also the first date of the appointment by the federal government should not necessarily be an issue where people forfeit their salaries for an entire month that they have worked. Another plea is to make sure that this issue is sorted out before the December salaries. Francis, is going to be very important that people get their pays as early as possible. But that's it on that particular issue. 2,000 workers stand the risk of experiencing further delay with their salaries because of discrepancies on the IPPIS. That is the platform that is used for payment as of this time. Of course, a highly controversial one also. Part of the reasons that ASU had been on strike during their 8 months long strike, it was part of the conversations that they put on the table. They were looking for some upgraded format and also unified system of payment. Some of these irregularities that have not yet been sorted out by the federal government and the labor union of tertiary institution. But then we move ahead from that particular story and we look at the fact that there is still some Naira crisis brewing in the nation, and the fact that this story is going back and forth is worrisome. Remember that just last week, Mr. Cardoso, of course, governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, had come out to address the nation with regards to rumors of scarcity of the Naira around the country, and had duly said that upending the judgments of the Supreme Court, that going forward, the old banknotes and the redesigned Naira notes were going to continue to run concurrently, indefinitely in the system of Nigeria. It means if you have the old 200, 500 and 1,000 Naira notes, you can continue to use them indefinitely until all of the discrepancies involved in the redesigning of the Naira was adjusted and addressed before probably a new date will be put, or they will find a new system to mop up the old currencies from circulation. But as it is, far from what we have had circulating in statements, it seems to be that cash shortage is circulating, and not only is it affecting word on the street, it is also affecting the fact that banks are beginning to experience cash shortages, and customers are rushing to revalidate their BVNs and NINs. And we're wondering, we need to be careful with these identifications in Nigeria. First of all, there is a multiplicity of it. Why do we have a current rush for verification of BVN and NIN after it was already done?
Well, it's a serious conversation. Two things happening. One thing identified by the banks as is the issue of cash crunch. It's been on for I think this is the third week since we started talking about this. It started off from Akwa Ibom, and as at then people were like, oh, why is it always peculiar to Akwa Ibom state? And then it spiraled out to other states of the federation. And then the CBN came to reiterate the fact that as far as the Naira scarcity is concerned, there was no need for that. And then, of course, subsequently we saw the Supreme Court giving its verdict backing the CBN an extension of the legal tender of both the old and the new Naira banknotes as legal tender for indefinitely, pending when the federal government through the CBN is able to put up modalities to ensure smooth access of the cash to all Nigerians. But when you look at the reality on ground, it definitely would literally seem like the banks themselves are finding it difficult to even have the money. And it goes back to the CBN, which has said that they have enough money to circulate to deposit money banks. So it's a call first and foremost on the leadership of the CBN across the states of the Federation to ensure that there is enough money circulated to deposit money banks. And then, of course, another conversation, NIN, BVN linkage has been an issue and a conversation which most Nigerians are no longer comfortable even going to pass through the stress. And we told us that this morning that over 75 million accounts do not have that linkage. Now, when you look at that 75 million out of the millions of Nigerians who have accounts, that's a huge number. So you're going to have to ask the question, why are Nigerians not feeling comfortable to link their bank, verify their bank details with the NIN and the BVN? It goes back to the issues that Nigerians are experiencing. You wake up, you've linked your BVN, you've linked your NIN to the same account, and yet without your verification, you sit down in the comfort of your house and people are taking your money. And you go to the banking halls, they're telling you, oh, they cannot do anything about it. You have to be the one to pursue the police. The same bank that you cannot on your own personal phone, even when your phone numbers are registered, carry out transactions without double checking, verifying with the necessary details that has been given to you by the bank. But someone else is able to access your money. And then, of course, the bank lacks the responsibility to trace that money, to be able to hold the account that money was sent to, because they have all of those details. So when situations like this arises, Nigerians have lost faith in whatever processes is set to ensure security and make sure your money is not taken out. And when that continues, definitely you're going to have this huge number of persons feeling very uncomfortable to even go through the process. And then you're also looking at the rigorous process of going to the banks day in, day out without being able to succeed. The last time my phone got stolen, and unfortunately that was like my very first line that I bought way back, I think around 2001, I could not get the SIM pack to retrieve that number. Going to the bank, it took me 2 weeks of going to the bank almost on a daily basis, and I still was not able to change my number to the new number on the bank details. So imagine what Nigerians would have to go through, especially at a point in time when the banks are also saying, oh, we are short, staff because of the jackpot syndrome, people living outside the shores of the country for greener pasture, so we do not have enough hands to handle, the bulk of responsibilities that comes to the banking or on a daily basis. So it raises a whole lot of questions, and this is also an issue that the CBN needs to look at into a holistically. I think it was just yesterday we read where the federal government has given a certain university teaching hospital or hospital the mandate to recruit about 200 staff. And then that takes me to the conversation we had here, and I said there are people at a point when we are saying, oh, we do not have enough staffs. We do not have enough medical professionals to man the medical facilities. But there are people who are graduates. There are doctors who are graduates who do not have a job still in this country. So why is it that we are not employing all the hands that we have before now sitting down to say we do not have enough? For us to be able to get to that point, first mop up all of the talents that you have in the system, people that are there, have the certificate, have everything that is needed or required, all the criteria for the different subsectors that we have. And then after that, when you no longer have anybody, then you can say, oh, we have shortages. You can't say we have shortages when there are people who are looking for jobs in the country and they don't have that jobs. And I asked a question as that yesterday. If you're saying recruit 200, when we say, oh, we don't have these professionals, where are the 200 professionals going to come from? Is it not still from this Nigeria?
Very, very funny issues. Of course, we see that the Central Bank of Nigeria is moving to freeze accounts without BVNs and NIN by April 2024, and therefore the Central Bank of Nigeria gave a directive that all persons who their bank verification number and NIN are not linked to the account should go ahead and do this linkage. Now, this is where the long queues that we have seen outside the banking halls at various banks in Nigeria stemmed from. There is a directive by the Central Bank of Nigeria to make sure that their NIN and their BVN is linked. And, I think Francis has raised a really salient point this morning. I did a transaction on my account sometime last week, and I had like an average of 500 naira tops, like those monies that you use and it remains on your account plus the lump sum. And then I just did a transaction that was definitely not going to cost me 500 naira, Francis.
And you
just
discovered it was
paid
gone.
for fuel at the filling station. By the time my card returned to me, 500 naira lost. And I'm like, where did 500 naira go to? I did not spend, a sum plus 500 naira buying fuel. I spent the whole sum. So, this withdrawal of 500 naira, where exactly did you go to? And you know that real thing is nobody in Nigeria has the time to start pursuing that 500 naira. But you do the math. Take 500 naira out of everybody's account on those kinds of transactions, multiply it across millions of naira, across millions of people. Somebody is making huge sums of money at the expense of Nigerians in this country. Now, these are some of the concerns that people have with regards to these NIN and BVN linkages. What's the back end that, the layman does not understand? You have our BVNs, you have our NINs, it's linked to our accounts, and all of these kinds of discrepancies keep happening. Sometimes they will explain to you his bank charges for this, for that. By the time you calculate the amount of money that has been taken from your account for maintenance of your account in the month alone, you know that it's not worth, all of these kinds of things. But now, relating the fact that the Central Bank of Nigeria has said we need to update our NIN and BVNs and the cash shortage, there is no there ought not to be any kind of relation there, Francis, because people are going to put in identification numbers. So why is it a matter of cash shortage at the banks? If these people are not coming to have financial transactions, the money available in the bank should be available for circulation. And why are we seeing that cash is scarce?
Well, the banks will always find a way to explain things away. But one thing is definitely certain. If we have enough money in the system, that even if all Nigerians want to go into the bank and withdraw money, we should have enough money to give to Nigerians, especially at this point in time. Because as Nigerians are taking money out, traders who are, having the field day of selling will return that money to the bank. So definitely we shouldn't have any issue with shortage of cash. But of course, I think at this point is where we have to advocate for the 10th National Assembly to look into setting a legislation in place that will allow Nigerians sue banks and get their money triple times for whenever any undocumented or illegal transaction is made on a person's personal account without that person authorizing it. Because it is the same bank that tells us without authorizing transactions, it cannot be done. Even when you send a check, make a simple blunder on your signature, the banks will not allow it go. So how is it that individuals are able to sit in the comforts of their houses and take some other person's money? The banks know where the money left your account to, but they cannot do anything about it because, as alleged by most Nigerians, these have the handiworks of some criminal elements within the banking system.
Of course, there's going to be collaboration.
So we need to get to that point in Nigeria where there are pieces of legislation put in place. If somebody's money is taken from his bank account without that person authorizing it, the bank gets to pay for damages because it is getting too much. We cannot speak about the number of Nigerians who have lost their businesses, who have lost huge amounts of money. Some have even committed suicide as a result of that. I literally have seen people, move from where they used to be to starting all over again because all the life savings somebody had over time was stolen at the snap of the finger. And it's not like the person revealed the details of his or her bank, secret codes. You just see that and you begin to, see bank debit alerts.
I've actually heard someone talk about that. Literally had, some money, quite a lot of money, probably running into millions in their account. And they said they sat and noticed that within a space of 24 hours, all of the money was going. Like every 20 minutes, someone was drawing money from their account. And they called the banks and everybody was acting like they do not understand that money is leaving this bank account by the minute. The person said he literally sat and saw the money go until the account was emptied, but yet there are people in charge. So we need to find the operational system between linking the BVN and the NIN to this account and how more secure the back ends can be. Now, we are also seeing that although the Central Bank of Nigeria, in conjunction with the courts, have said that these money should continue to be used. The bank notes should continue to be used together. We continue to see different banks in the country continue to ration the Naira notes to customers of course, in banking halls and also automated teller machines, being programmed to dispense limited cash. Francis, between the Central Bank of Nigeria and the National Assembly, someone needs to sit in with all these other banks, operational banks, and sit down and have a conversation. Let them look into the issue. What exactly is the matter? Why are we having limited cash transfers and withdrawals? Remember that that whole cash limit thingy by the federal government was lifted. We're no longer working with those laws. So who exactly is implementing this one, and at whose cost are these implementations being done? It's such a serious issue. And when we see the fact that we are coming in on the Yuletide season, a season where the holidays are coming and people would usually need funds to move around, travel, enjoy themselves, it is at the risk of making life more difficult for Nigerians than it is already, for us to be experiencing these kinds of irregularities in the banking sector. If we want to go back to the Stone Age where people don't keep their monies to the bank, let the banking system and the Central Bank of Nigeria, the financial institutions, let Nigerians know that they are not ready to be up and running with the systems therein. Let these issues be rectified, and let Nigerians have peace where their money is concerned. To the tune of several billions of naira, the first cash crunch that happened earlier on this year, Francis, a lot of persons lost their monies. It ran into the billions by the time the analysis was done. It would suffice us to say that so far so good. A lot of persons have not recovered their money. Someone like me, I have not had the patience to go to that bank that I used to tell them that XYZ amount of money, got trapped in the system. And that's why I just stopped using the account entirely, because I cannot explain what happened. Now, add that to several thousands of persons who lost thousands of naira, hundreds of thousands of naira in the system. Where is this? How you go to a bank and they'll tell you the money is hanging. You better tell people where the money is hanging, let the money drop and let them continue. But the Central Bank of Nigeria really needs to rise to the occasion. And like we always say, the Senate president will say that we like calling the legislators out for things that don't even concern them. Well, you are the, people who are primarily in charge of making the laws in this country. If it's not working, who are Nigerians supposed to call?
Definitely, we have to call you. The laws have to be put in place. The laws have to be implemented. And of course, Nigerians need to find those, strength within the confines of the constitutions and the laws of the land to be able to seek out their right. But we move away from that. Just yesterday, the federal government came under serious fire over the COP28, delegations contingents list. Of course, we saw Peter Obi of the Labour Party and Tiko Abubakar speaking over the wasteful spending of the presidency and the federal government as far as the COP28 was concerned. But of course, this morning, speaking out from that, we see that the Labour Party presidential candidate has said that the federal government needs to move away from wasteful spending and focus more on issues and sacrificial leadership. The focus of this conversation is basically sacrificial leadership. We are in a point in Nigeria where we've seen severally President Ahmed Bola Tinubu telling Nigerians to sacrifice, telling Nigerians to be patient, telling Nigerians to make efforts to understand with the federal government. The removal of fuel subsidy is going to bring much good and development. We are going to see the renewed hope agenda bring, economic revitalization, transformation across the different subsectors, priority areas under the renewed hope agenda of his administration. But of course, in all of these that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu has been speaking, it seems that the words of the president goes in the wrong direction, while the actions of the president goes in the other direction. The words and the actions are not matching, seems not to be matching at this point in time. When you have a president who is calling on Nigerians to sacrifice and understand with the federal government, and yet the same federal government is not understanding with Nigerians in terms of the finances of the country that is being spent away on very frivolous things, then it definitely calls the attention of Nigerians to the fact that while the leaders are advocating for sacrifice on the part of Nigerians to cope for the time being, pending when the so-called renewed hope agenda is going to bring about the desired transformation for all Nigerians to begin to, heave a sigh of relief that yes, we're seeing a change in the narrative of things. They are definitely not doing their part. I mean, when you look at the number of money that has been voted for very funny, silly things under this administration, and the expression, or should we say the explanations that have been given by the federal government and the National Assembly, it makes it more or less like a laughing stock. It literally looks like the National Assembly, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is cracking jokes with Nigerians and, of course, the common purse of the country.
Well, that's an issue where the words of mouth and the actions are not tallying in the country. And we'll just move ahead from that particular story just to link all of these kinds of discrepancies and see the fact that new numbers have arisen out of the COP28 summit being held in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates at this time. Of course, yesterday we had reports of the fact that, it was about less than 100 people that the federal government did actually sponsor to go for this particular COP28 summit. But as of this morning, the numbers have changed from 100 to 422. And they are saying that these are the only persons that they have sponsored to attend this. But let's remember, when we're even having conversation around taxation and all of this, these monies that have been taken to sponsor 422 persons as of this morning, because we are very sure that before business day closes today, the federal government is going to find out that, it wasn't 422. We seem to have found out that extra 100 people had been sent out from this MDA and that MDA, but we will wait for it whilst it happens. But 422 as of this morning, and the federal government is saying that these are the number of persons that they sponsored to be in attendance at the COP28 summit. But these varying numbers, how is it helping Nigerians at this time? Whether it is less than 100 or 422. We are saying at the end of the day that these monies are taken out of the dividends of taxpayers' monies. Was it really necessary to have this number of persons attend? I'm still giving the room to breathe in the numbers, because I know that there are civil society organizations out of Nigeria. There are climate change enthusiasts and organizations that would have gone there on their own and made up the entire numerical strength of 1,411. It may not all have been from the government coffers, let's be very honest. And but it's also a matter of transparency on the part of the federal government to actually say how many people they sponsored for that particular summit.
Well, as far as COP28 is concerned, or climate change, or conversations around climate change and issues of national discourse is concerned, we're definitely aware as a people that there are some, business tycoons, boardroom experts, activists, civil society organizations, influencers who have special interests, who might want to, be part of such, event, of course, representing the Nigerian people. But in the event that happens, if, for instance, you as a government, you are sponsoring 10 people out of 100 people, the list should concern the first 10 people, very, very visibly, representatively marked, that these are the contingents from the federal government, sponsored by the federal government. Now, the rest of the people who are coming to represent Nigeria are on their own funding the travel expenses just to come, because they also have interest in what is happening at the COP28. Now, if the federal government was transparent, if they were running the much touted inclusive government, the accountable government that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu has spoken about, we should have seen from the onset of the word go, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is leaving for the COP28. As we've oftentimes been told, there's literally no time the president is traveling out of Nigeria that we don't have comments coming from the presidency. The president is going to travel with XYZ, this, yada, yada, yada. You see all of those lists. And Nigerians know that, these are the members of the president's entourage.
Very valid.
Now, why did the federal government not also do the same thing for COP28? So that Nigerians would know from the onset of the president leaving the country, these are the federal government's contingents going under the sponsorship of the government. And then this other extension on the list are Nigerians who also have interest in what is happening. And of course, they are going to represent Nigeria, but they are funding their trips. That way, all of this drama, all of these countering and accusations and trying to defend will not have come into place.
Francis, I don't think that I've heard, a better explanation to this issue since, it's been touted. Because first of all, like you rightly said, oftentimes if the president is going to be traveling for an important meeting in any country of the world, we are going to hear that, the president is traveling with so number of persons in his entourage. And until the presidential candidate of the Labour Party raised alarm over the number of delegates at the COP28, nobody had actually looked into the number of persons that were available on that delegation to the COP28. So it also goes to show that yes, the presidency and whoever is in charge of the delegation to the COP28 actually does have something to hide. And particularly on most parts, the fact that the numbers have varied from under 100 yesterday to 422 today gives room for Nigerians to know that, by the end of business day today, tomorrow, the numbers might actually go up. Remember that this COP28 meeting is still continuing until the 10th of December. We still have quite a number of days for the federal government and the presidency to find out that, beyond 422, there's a lot more people that maybe the conversation will now move away from full funding to half funding. It can be all kinds of things. And the most worrisome part of this is that it continues to make Nigeria and Nigerians a laughing stock in front of the rest of the world. We are looking at the fact that primarily on the table with regards to this controversy that is trailing the number of delegation to the COP28 summit is that some of these activities being sponsored by the federal government, literally, we cannot afford it. If we're going to be honest people, working by the books, interpreting real-time events with regards to the economic realities of the nation on ground, then we would actually cut down certain things. This is a pressure on the cost of governance at this time. Now, when you say that we have a delegation of 1,411, let's assume that 411 come from the private sector, Francis, and then for whatever reason, about 1,000 persons from the president's direct entourage to those that came from the MDAs are up to 1,000. What exactly are they doing at the conference? What contributions are they making? Remember that we have videos and pictures emanating from this conference where we found out, Francis, that the session where you're supposed to have delegates of Nigeria actually seated during the course of the event was half empty. So it's more like half the number of persons who said they left this country for the COP28 conference are actually on tourism activities in Abu Dhabi. They're not even attending and getting the conversations right. When they come back now, they're going to sit down and make laws and policies that are not in tandem with the conversations at the COP28 summit, and they will come to try to implement it in the country. So it's a question of transparency. It's a question of when will the federal government of Nigeria actually see that they are a wasteful administration, they are a wasteful government, and we are wasteful in every way that we go. And now, per head on 422 persons that have been agreed by the presidency and the federal government, how much are they spending, Francis?
Well, it's a sorry situation that we have, but then it will still come down to one issue that has been raised over time. We are never going to see the leaders of this country change. We're never going to see a change in the narrative until the Nigerian people rise up to their responsibilities. And what is that responsibility? First and foremost, holding Nigerian leaders accountable. Secondly, taking the bold step of ensuring that if people are misrepresenting the country, misrepresenting their constituent, misrepresenting the mandate that was entrusted to them by the people, they should be able to move and get those people out. I think in this country, we need to get to a point where Nigerian politicians understand that when you're voted in, that's not the end of the day. When you misrepresent, you're definitely going to be voted out. We need to also get to a point where there are pieces of legislation in place. And one would ask, who are those to enforce the legislations? When we see the elites stronger than the institutions, whereas we should have stronger institutions as opposed to stronger individuals, it's a whole messy, murky waters for the country and its people. And the image that is being painted, at the long run, it is the average Nigerian who's trying to make an honest living outside the shores of this country that goes in for it. Because everybody begins to look at you like, once you're from Nigeria, oh, you're a criminal. Once you carry the Nigerian passport, oh, you are a fraudster. Once you carry the Nigerian passport, you cannot be trusted. So individuals that have spent years building the credibility, building the confidence, building the personality, still get to be treated like common thieves, common criminals, because the government of the day is not transparent, because the people of the country are not doing what needs to be done, because the image that is projected to the outside world puts an image that cannot be trusted, makes the next person want to look over their shoulders the moment they hear, nah. Before you even land Nigeria,
Let's look at some of the breakdown of the delegates contained at the COP28. Of course, this is a breakdown that was given to us by a statement signed by the Minister of. Okay, of course, we have 32 delegates. We're from the National Council on Climate Change, 32 persons. We also had here, now we're breaking down the 422 that the federal government has acknowledged. They had 34 from the Federal Ministry of Environment, 167 delegates from all ministries, 67 from the presidency, 9 from the office of the vice president, 40 from the National Assembly, and 73 from the federal parastatals and agencies. Of course, it was Idris who added that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his officials are in Dubai for serious business and not for a jamboree. So they've given a breakdown of the people and from the different agencies that are attending this particular COP28 summit in the United Arab Emirates. Well, the question of why the number of persons that are there will continue until the return on the 10th of December. We are only saying we hope that as it stands as of this morning, the varying numbers from less than 100 yesterday to 422 will not skyrocket into another thing. But be it as it may, like I said earlier, we must make room for the fact that there are NGOs, there are private organizations, and there are different agencies within Nigeria that also have the room to be part of those kinds of summits. Of course, there are agencies, NGOs, individuals that are strong advocates and activists for climate change, and that would definitely have made up the 1,411 delegates that we have. But the biggest question from the likes of Peter Obi of the Labour Party is, how much is it costing us as a nation to attend some of these events? I will not forget to point out the fact that the likes of Uganda had said they would not be attending these kinds of events for the rest of the year because it is placing too much of a demand on their finances as a nation. But then let's move up from that particular story this morning as we rush to the end of these segments. We see that with regards to university education, the tuition fees of the University of Calabar Cross River State has been hiked by a full 100%.
Well, it's expected. Nigerians had expected it, good saying. I mean, when the fee hike started in the country, we saw the presidency, I think it was the presidency or the National Assembly or the office of the Minister of Education. Yeah, it was the Minister of Education saying they were going to probe, the reason for the increment or the hike in the increment of fees across the universities. But of course, since that statement came from the Minister of Education, we are yet to see any action coming up. What has been the result of the probe? What has been the move taken by the federal government to ameliorate the situation? Rather shortly after that, we saw the presidency asking for 40% of internally, generated revenues from across the institution. And but for the reactions of ASU and the Association of Vice Chancellors of Nigeria and other stakeholders in the, tertiary education sector, we probably would have seen that policy statement that was later described as ill-timed and ill-conceived being implemented at the detriment of Nigerians. It's an interesting trend when we see things happening. But of course, one would have expected that the University of Calabar, like every other university, would take into consideration a whole lot of things. And let's not forget, in a hurry, I think since we had the female vice chancellor in the University of Calabar, the stories has been completely different. If you recall, last year,
completely different, is that negative or positive?
Negatively. If you recall, last year the students were protesting just before the sexual harassment protests that were carried out by the law students in the institution. They were protesting the fact that it's like literally you wake up every day to a new increment in the charges that you pay at the departmental level. Is either one charge is increased, another one is increased. You go to the department, you're told what you used to pay 3,000 naira for is now 6,000, is now 7,000, and all of those, should we call it mild as at the time being, those small additions that were added across board. And it literally looked like, once you wake up every morning, the students will be waiting for, oh, what announcement of increments will we be, experiencing today? Will we be told today? So it was long anticipated. And the only shocking thing is the increment of 100%. Because you'll also look into the conversation here. Students are not being given their due. You are looking at an environment that has not changed. I have not seen any academic environment in this country that is committed to making sure there are changes on a daily basis. The environment, the lecture halls, the school facilities, everything literally stays the same. So you ask the question, this money that is, increased for Nigerian students across board, what is it going to be utilized for? Is it an avenue for people in these institutions to steal from the public treasuries? Is it an avenue to further impoverish Nigerians? And I think last year, within the course of last year, Unical was trending for a comment that was allegedly made by the VC when she stated that education is not for the poor. So if you are poor, leave the school and go back to your village. Go and farm, go and find carpentry work, go and do something else. Education was not meant for the poor. And that, generated a whole lot of controversy, especially when the Unical students, as they call themselves, Malabres, were very excited when they finally heard, oh, we're having a female as the VC of the school, a mother who's going to be able to understand the plights of, parents, the plights of Nigerian students, and does be able to, to a large extent, bring out policies that will help the students and engender students staying on campus. Last year, we cannot count the number of Unical students who committed suicide as a result of the different things that were happening on campus. So it's definitely an ugly trend as far as Nigerian education is concerned. And going forward, I think we might have a whole lot of Nigerian students dropping out of school. And that's the conversation that, unfortunately, we cannot move away from. Because when you're looking at an increase from about, 50-something thousand to 140-something thousand, like the sciences, for instance. Somebody is moving from paying about 67,000 to about 145,000 naira. How do you expect parents in an economy that is not moving, in a country where minimum wage remains the same? How do you expect parents, where do you expect parents to begin to cover up money from? And then, of course, that also will spiral out into another conversation, the height of criminality. Because students who are not interested in, going out of school will either take to stealing, and the females will take to other, immoral activities just to be able to balance up. And then, of course, in extension, rather than build a society, you're building a society that is going to be divided across criminal lines. And that does not in any way speak well for the people.
At the end of the day, at what cost is education necessary? Because if we put together the fact that people might have to lean into criminality or some forms of immorality just to be able to have an education, we are not saying that that is the only option, but we know how the school environment is. On an average, youths easily would bend to vices other than use their brains and think. And when a child sees the home that they're coming from and they know that there is nothing under the sun that can make their parents raise 114,000 and 125,000, 148,000 to be able to send them to tertiary institution. Some families have upwards of 3-4 children in the university at the same time with a minimum wage of 30,000. Some of this money is that also, for instance, imagine these 2,000 plus persons now that their salaries are going to be delayed. And if they need to pay school fees for a new semester, where are they going to be getting this money from? And I think another very troubling thing is, under what laws is the NUC and the governing bodies for the universities allowing that a Senate committee of a particular university can just decide that they're going to have an impromptu meeting today and increase the university fees, the tuition fees for universities? Is it that there is no uniform expectation as to what tuition fees are meant to be anymore across our schools in the country? Now the University of Calabar has done it. Tomorrow it will be news from another university, and before you know, you find out that even federal universities, federally owned universities, are no longer affordable for the common Nigerian to go to school. Imagine the impetus of the former minister to say that education is not for the poor. Then what do you expect us to do? We already have forget about the fact that we have quite a number of educated persons in Nigeria. We're also borderline highly illiterate in the country. So we still have a lot of investment to do in terms of education. Now, one thing is going to school, but having a proper education within the school walls is another thing. Now, when you say that you have increased school fees in the University of Calabar by 100%, how much are you going to reinvest into the school system, seeing that, you know, returning students for sciences are going to be paying upwards of 155,000, 125,000, 148,000 respectively. Now that cuts across different courses within the sciences. Now we still have this third party dues, Francis, 21,500, 21,500, 38,500. Third party dues, please, Francis. I would say I did not go to a federal school, so I cannot relate. Please, what is this third party dues about?
Well,
is it like paying the caution fee when you want to rent a house in case you spoil something?
Well,
what is this about?
Obviously, I can't explain. I think we need somebody from the university community to also explain, because I was trying to ask questions yesterday. It literally looked like even some of our parents are not, you know, aware of what third-party dues are. Students themselves are not aware of what, you know, is described as third-party dues.
So we're just inventing things and putting clauses for people to pay monies, and we cannot explain it.
Unfortunately, it's going to take a whole lot of, you know, pieces of legislation. It's going to take a whole lot of standing up on the part of, I think this is where civil society organizations need to diversify what they're advocating for at this point in time in this country, because most of the Nigerian students are not going to be able to speak for themselves. I recall just recently, I think it was the University of U when the fee hike conversation also came up, and I asked a question: what happens to the student union body? And the conversation was, how would you expect a student union body to react in the interest of the Nigerian student when they are being placed on the students by the leadership of the institution? So as opposed to what used to be practiced, where the students will gather, conduct election, and choose who they know is going to represent their interests, it is now the leadership of the institution picking a student union president and the ESCOs for the university community. So literally the leadership of maybe the VC or whoever, the cabinet or the cabal within the institution should say, okay, this guy is going to save our interests. They pick him. This is going to be. And then they mobilize students and use whatever illegal means within the institution to ensure the person comes out as a student union president. So people who should speak for the interests of Nigerian students, you know, the practices that we used to see, that when the Nigerian student wants to speak, the student union body wants to stand for the rights of the Nigerian student, it stands out. In recent times, yeah, we've seen institutions suspending student union bodies because they're standing out. The few that were not manipulated by the institutions. That we've seen those suspensions happening. I think recently it was some medical institutions in Benue State that, you know, took those decisions, suspending students for standing out to protest bad living conditions in the hostels. And then you ask the question, where are we headed in this country? But we do hope, of course, as a country, that, you know, we cannot give away the fact that we need to consistently engage, and we need to continue to keep hope alive, and we need to continue to do the best we can to demand, you know, accountability and transparency on the part of our leaders and the minders of the systems across board, whether it's in the educational sector or in the office and corridors of power. But this is where we put a pause on our conversations. Of course, we'll be heading out to the news brief next, where Mary Joseph is standing by to take us through. And when we come back, a lot more will be unraveled on Rise and Shine. Just
Christmas season is here again. Are you aware that making your business or products visible on a television space gives your brand a wider visibility and patronage? In the spirit of the season, Spectrum Television is offering a whopping 25% discount on all services. Advertise your products and services while this offer lasts from 1st December 2023 to January 31st, 2024. We are a television with a passion to take your business and services on a satisfactory lane. You do not want to miss this opportunity. For more inquiries, visit our city office at number 2 Taft Plaza Close off Akaitinen Road, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, or call the following numbers on your screen. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Spectrum. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
broadcasts and entertainment, sports on the go, and news from the world. Watch Spectrum TV on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and free-to-air frequency 12733. Visit our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Every day marks a day of significance.
That in view of the apology tendered by this former minister who had earlier been cleared by this August Assembly,
as we face critical issues, developments and events which shape our social and political landscape here in Nigeria and beyond. Political Spectrum is a program specially designed to help make sense of all the moving parts of developments and occurrences in our nation's polity and political economy.
There is nothing wrong with Nigeria, but there's everything wrong.
The educational history of public figures holds significance beyond mere biographical details.
From executive, legislative and judicial developments at national and subnational levels to international diplomacy and relations.
Join us for exclusive interviews with key political figures, expert opinions, analysts, thought-provoking conversations for and against, shedding light on the major issues that matter. We will always keep you updated on the most factual, smartest and unbiased reportage.
Stay tuned to Political Spectrum. Political Spectrum. All sides matter at the round table. Political Spectrum. Exclusive to Spectrum Television.
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to improve for the lapses in counting.
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to improve for the lapses in counting.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on Channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
State and government, Secretary General, delegates.
This was the Lagos, Nigeria for Spectrum TV to report for the lapses in Plateau County.
Good morning to you. Welcome to your morning news from Spectrum, live from Uyo. My name is Mary Joseph. Begin the news brief this morning with the reports that the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum and Regulatory Commission has said that the federal government is planning to revoke unused oil exploration leases that companies were granted but have not been able to carry out any exploration activities on them. The Chief Executive Officer, Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Benga Komolafe, told Reuters on Monday that only companies with viable technical and financial backup would get to keep their leases, according to the latest data from the NUPRC. Although about 53 exploration leases were issued from 2003 till date, over 60% of the prospecting licenses issued to local and foreign oil firms had expired. Away from that, the Nigerian Labour Congress NLC is looking forward to negotiating a national minimum wage that will be commensurate with the prevailing cost of living. Labour leader Joe Ajaero had said that the Congress will be open to an establishment of a living wage that covered the cost of living and make allowances for some savings by the workers. The NLC president spoke yesterday at the opening of the 2023 Hamilton School in Abuja with the theme Building Trade Union Skills for Policy Engagement. Ajaero, who was represented by NLC Deputy President Benjamin Anthony, said it has become very necessary for government at all levels to recognize that the life and living conditions are exceedingly difficult, especially for working people in both the formal and informal sectors of the economy. Meanwhile, the Nigerians' foreign trade in the third quarter of 2023 rose by 53.16% year-on-year to about 18.80 trillion naira. This is the crude oil revenue surged by 83.23% to 80.54 trillion naira in the quarter under review. In the third quarters of 2022, total crude oil sales amounted to 4.66 trillion naira, buoyed by an increase in trade activities. In the period, total exports increased by 60.78% to 10.35 trillion naira, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. Foreign trade in goods statistics quarter 3 2023 reports. Now, the report released on Monday read in part Nigeria's total merchandise trade stood at 18.80 trillion naira in quarter 3 2023. Now, the value indicates an increase of 54.62% over the amount recorded in quarter 2 of 2023, as well by 53.16% when compared to the value recorded in quarter 3 of 2022. We head straight now to the foreign scene, where the Nigerian Foreign Ministry has said that it was ending the agreement between Niger and the EU regarding the Niamey-based civilian capacity building mission called ECAP Sahel Niger. The mission, launched in 2012, supports Niger's internal security forces, authorities and non-governmental actors. Niger's foreign ministry also announced in a press statement that the withdrawal by the state of Niger of consent for the deployment of an EU military partnership mission in Niger. And finally, in sports, some Nigerian football stakeholders says they are set to engage former and current officials of the Nigerian Football Federation in a fresh legal battle over alleged corruption and misappropriation of football development funds. According to report, the funds is in line with stakeholders, including FIFA's $8.6 million 2014 World Cup grant, $10 million 2018 World Cup grant, amongst other streams of FIFA and CAF developmental funds, as well as sponsorship money from corporate bodies between 2014 and 2022. Chairman of the Professional Football Association of Nigeria Task Force, Harrison Jala, in a statement obtained by a correspondent on Monday, alleged that the case was stalled by former Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami. According to him, the Independent Corruption Practices and Other Related Offences Commission had investigated the said NFF officials, which resulted in seizure of the suspect's properties. We'll have details of this and many more in our news at 12. My name is Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Shine, where we have Francis and we are on standby. Do have a wonderful morning.
States and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to remove 40 lapses into counting.
Of course, this is Rise and Shine coming to you live on Spectrum Television. In case you just joined us, you've missed a whole lot, but you can catch up by being a part of our online communities. all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. That will literally take you to all of the conversations that we've had on Rise and Shine this morning. But we're heading straight to having our interview session. Of course, we have joining us live from the city of Uyo, Harry Udo, who is an activist, the chairman, civil society organization, of course, a good governance advocate, among others. Good morning, Mr. Harry. Welcome to Rise and Shine.
Good morning, Francis. Good morning, Oyai.
So good to have you on the
both
show.
of you this morning.
Happy to hear from you. It's been a long time, Mr. Harry. How are you? Happy New Month.
Yeah. Happy New Month to you, and God bless your month. And you too, Oyai.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having me this morning.
Thank you so much. A lot of issues are rising out of Nigeria and even in Africa, and I know that when we looked at the plethora of issues on the table this morning, I was like, we had no better person to speak to than, Sir Harry Udo on these issues. Quite a number of things that we hope that we, can run by in the very few minutes that we have. But let's start out of a developing issue here in Nigeria. The Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, has moved to spend 15 billion naira to develop a vice presidential residence for Kashim Shettima. We've continued to see civil society organizations, the likes of Serap, for instance, topmost on that list, saying that they're going to sue the federal government. And since they've also written to Godswill Akpabio, the Senate President, and the National Assembly to wade into this matter, they've also said if the National Assembly does not wade into the matter, they will be taking the National Assembly to court. Why would 15 billion naira be spent on a vice presidential residence when Nigeria is grappling tooth and nail? Nigerians are grappling tooth and nail to survive at this time. In the overall, what are your thoughts with this kind of initiative by the FCT minister and the very wasteful moves made by this administration so far?
Thank you so much, AI. Thanks once again for having me. My thoughts are exactly in the statements that you have made. There's nothing wrong in building a house for the vice president, but it would occur that we've had vice presidents over the years, and so where have they been living at? And so, like I said, nothing wrong in building a residence for the vice president, but the timing seems to be, incredibly wrong, especially when you look at the misery that Nigerians are going through. The multidimensional poverty rate has gone up since the fuel subsidy removal. Escalating inflation is biting hard and has reduced the spending power of citizens. And citizens don't have enough in their hands anymore, because what 10 naira could buy a year ago, in fact, in January, a 200 naira can buy that now. That's how terrible things have been. And so you would think for a government that came in at the time and arrogantly, went about a fuel subsidy removal, knowing that the issue around petrol and petroleum affects every life in Nigeria, affects everything in Nigeria. To come out, after winning the election, to take the decisions they've taken.
We do hope that internet will not interfere us this morning. We need to have this conversation. Of course, we're speaking with Harry Udo, who himself is a good government
to think
advocate.
about other than how to please Nigerians. In this current state that we are in, all right, that the citizens are suffering as they do. I don't think that they are getting their priorities right. The first thing Wike did was to buy vehicles for chiefs of the in Abuja, chiefs, paramount rulers, and all of that in the FCT. Well, it might be that they needed that, but this time around, when you look at the poverty situation in the country, when you look at the misery level of Nigerians, building a house for the vice president, just as the president himself is looking to renovate his residence for whooping sums of money that would have gone, to empower Nigerians and put money in the hands of Nigerians, that they first of all survive so that they can have Nigerians to rule over. Because these are rulers and they are not leaders. Leaders don't think the way these guys are thinking. All right. So I'm a bit surprised. I'm taken aback. I'm disappointed. I'm embarrassed. I feel ashamed that, I'm in a country where we have this crop of persons, sitting in the hands of affairs of the country, taking decisions that are outrightly, to put it mildly, stupid and idiotic, at this time in this country. It's terrible to even contemplate what these guys are doing, considering the misery situation in the country.
Okay, now, Mr. Harry, a lot that you've said this morning goes down to the conversations that Nigerians are asking. Are we heading in the right direction or heading in the wrong direction in Nigeria? Judging by the comments coming from the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, he stated that what we need in Nigeria is sacrificial leadership. And unless we get to that point, then we will be continuing to walk around in circles. I'd like to ask this morning, do you see the possibility of a change, a positive change coming to Nigeria anytime soon? We know that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu has said, yes, the removal of fuel subsidy, Nigerians should be patient, Nigerians should sacrifice. In the shortest possible time, the whole thing is going to turn around. But looking at some of the policy direction and some of the wasteful expenses coming from this present administration, do you see light at the end of the tunnel anytime soon?
Unfortunately, I do not see any light at the end of the tunnel. The Labour Party presidential candidate talked about sacrificial leadership. But the truth is, we do not have leaders. I just said that a while ago. We have rulers. So leaders will talk about sacrifice at this time. I mean, look at a country, the number of very little African countries that are making sacrifices. The president of one of the small nations of Africa the other day was saying no more foreign trips because the economy is bad and the citizens are going through dire straits. So no more foreign trips that leads to extra codes for members of government. No more health tourism and all of that. We will do with what we have. I would have thought that that's what a leader does. All right. But we have rulers who are just there to feed their fat bellies. All right. And so there's no light at the end of the tunnel when you look at the priorities of government. This government has come up in these trying times. The president has had more appointees than previous governments, even governments at the time when Nigeria had so much money, they didn't know what to do with it. All right. And he keeps appointing and making appointments. There's almost no week that you don't have 3-4 appointments coming from the president. That's on the one hand. Number two, look at the priorities. Strings of vehicles for the office of the first lady. The constitution does not have office of the first lady, but strings of vehicles for the first lady, strings of vehicles they're changing the presidential fleet. All right. And then they are renovating house in Lagos. This man has a whole street called Bodilon in Lagos where he lives. So why does he need to do that at this time? Now, nobody's saying looking at these things aren't important, but it's about priorities. The priority is to ensure that Nigerians have the opportunity that they need to be able to engage in sustainable livelihood. They don't have that right now. They don't. And so there's no support coming from this government. There's no hope for this government, and there's nothing that they can do to help. I don't see anything good coming out of them. Look at the priorities. You would think that they'll be sensitive, to Nigerians and to be taking the right decisions. All you hear are promises and call for hope. Hope deferred. The Bible says, the Holy Book says, maketh the heart weak. Nigerians have become weakened by this government. Nigerians are, traumatized by this government. Nigerians have been emasculated by this government, within the short span of time that they've been here. I don't know what can happen, but there is no hope. And I think anyone who puts his hope on this government has a misplaced hope, as it were.
Oh, these are really strong concerns. But let's move up to our first focus conversation this morning. The FIRS gave standing order that between now and the 31st of December this year, that waivers are going to be given for penalties and other issues emanating from tax-related funds to be generated from different organizations in the country. They are giving a waiver to organizations across the country at this time. The waiver only will subsist till the 31st of December. Now, the big question is tax waivers at this time also, looking at the economic realities that we have in the country. Is this a really economic move for the FIRS to have made at this time? And in the overall, just so that, you know, a layman can understand, what does, you know, waiving tax incentive mean for employers and also business owners in Nigeria?
All right. So first of all, I'll start from the bottom of your question up. Tax waivers are government policies with which they work to liberate the tax net, all right, and ensure that more people come into the tax net and more people pay taxes. And then it's also an instrument when you waive tax to help with creating employment, help with attracting businesses and supporting businesses to sustain and so as to be able to help the economy develop. But in this instance, this is not a tax waiver in the sense of a tax waiver. This that the FIRS has done is to, you know, encourage taxpayers to come in and pay their taxes, who for one reason or the other haven't paid their taxes and have had, taxes accrue. And then, of course, there are penalties when you don't pay your tax at the time you should pay the tax. And then there is interest on the accrued taxes that you should have paid that you haven't paid. So what the FIRS has done is take away the penalties and say, okay, you don't have to pay penalties. So if you were owing tax for 3 years, and that tax for the 3 years is each 100,000 naira, by now, penalties would have taken it up to probably 1 million naira. So just come and pay your 300 naira. And of course, the interest that accrues on the that has been attracted by the accrued tax is also removed. So just come and pay your 300,000, and then you are on sound footing. Ordinarily, all right, this would be a fantastic move, all right, to bring more money that the government needs into the covers of government, because for some reason or the other, businesses fail to pay their taxes, and then it begins to, accumulate. And when it does, it becomes quite cumbersome. And we have, as part of the tax justice network in Nigeria, have advocated for the removal of these impediments, the interest, and for a government that is looking for money and have relied largely on borrowing, to survive, these are things you can unleash to help the economy, all right? But the thing is, at this moment, this tax relief that they have given to those who are owing taxes over the years is coming a bit too late, and the window that they've given up until the 31st of December is so short that nothing meaningful can happen. It's like a man dangling carrots at the child, and as the child makes attempt to go get the carrot is taken away. That's not good enough, all right? Number one, the fuel subsidy removal and the policies of this government have turned businesses upside down. Businesses, at the cottage industries, micro small enterprises, have all suffered tremendously because of the policies of this government. So even if they were owing before, now they cannot even, many of them have retrenched their staff, many businesses have closed down. How much are you going to raise, in this instance? All right, when there are these kinds of policies should come, in consonance with fair policies, the kinds of policies that enables businesses to thrive. But this government, in the one hand, has a hammer with which they are hammering down businesses, closing out businesses. A lot of foreign investments have been divested from this country. May and Baker has gone, and several others that have left quietly without even making noise about it. So you can understand the state of the economy right now. So this waiver they have given, is not, is just saying, look, let's see how we can, get in more money. And for me, I'm not even encouraged, because this tax, when it comes in, is going to be frivolously spent on residence for the vice president, yacht for the president, renovation of the president's lodge in Lagos and in Abuja, returning of cars for the president's wife, his children, and everyone else. And so you find that you're not encouraged, to go pay tax even. All right, because you're not seeing the benefit. There is, I keep telling you, that there are four purposes of taxation. Yeah. One is revenue, all right, and the other one is redistribution. The other one is repricing, all right. So when you look at all of these, you find that government only relies, on revenue, because of course that was the origin of taxation. And over the years, from the early times, in the first century and there, that's how societies came together, pool resources to develop society together, all right, and provide infrastructures and amenities for communal use. Now that has evolved to the point where tax becomes an effective policy instrument of government to, number one, succor the citizens and keep them away from lifestyles that will be injurious to their health. And that's the purpose of, that's the other one I said, repricing, where, you have situation where you use that to regulate your consumption pattern, for instance, cigarette smoking, alcohol intake, and stuff like that, and even some level of ostentatious lifestyle too, so that it can help your lifespan. The other one is redistribution, where you tax the rich more so that you can provide amenities that are beneficial to the poor. The government aren't looking at these situations at all. They're just looking at revenue, just revenue. What is the benefit of the persons paying taxes? We can't travel on the roads by road, all right? We cannot, we don't have water, so we generate our own water, and some silly government wants to tax boreholes that government is supposed to produce water for us. Now we spend our own money and we are paying tax to government. We create our boreholes. You want to tax the borehole. Now we also generate our own electricity for ourselves, and yet we pay tax to government. My sister and my brother, these guys are very unserious. They don't even know what they are doing. All right. Lagos State has become one of the worst states to live in because of the issues of taxation. They tax the air that you breathe, and that's what that man has brought to Nigeria. And Nigeria, like people as what out on the street, this is Shege part 1, part 2, part 3 to part 10 is on the way. We don't know nothing yet. This man is a tax collector, and that's what he's going to do, and that's what he's doing. So my point is, this tax waiver, that seeming waiver, you hear the word waiver, it looks like, oh, what a great act. No, it's not exactly what it is. It's just having those who were owing to come to pay. But the truth is, those who were owing before, whose businesses were so bad that they led them to owe, don't even have the businesses now, to have the kind of money that they need to go pay the taxes without the interest and the penalties. So it's a little, too late.
Yeah. Of course, we see the fact that this waiver is not necessarily on the original lump sum of taxation, but on the penalties accrued on the tax that these organizations are meant to pay. You were talking about revenue as one of the forms, of the offshoots of taxation. Now, last year, being 2022, the FIRS accrued about upwards of 10 trillion naira with regards to income. Our budgetary allocation for 2024 stands at 27.5 or thereabout trillion naira. Now, if we have a sector in the country that can generate 10 trillion naira, multiply that by different other sectors that come in with these kinds of revenue generation, how come we are still borrowing so much to be able to augment our budgetary allocation as a nation? Now, when we also talk about the fact that FIRS can generate upwards of 10 trillion naira as income in a year. Now, what this waiver is going to do is that this window bracket that they've opened, a lot of people are going to attempt to pay their penalties so that they cut back on what it would have cost them. Because from January 1st, if you have not taken advantage of the window, it means you will be going back to paying your debt as, whatever the numbers stand. So my question this morning is, how can we take advantage of internally generated revenues from the likes of FIRS, for instance, and add it to other sectors and other agencies that are generating funds and cut back on the amount of borrowing that the federal government is involved in?
Thank you. Yeah, a wonderful question. And we can discuss this for another 1 week sitting here together to discuss this particular question that you just asked. Number one, the question that follows that your question is, does the FIRS have the capacity, to collect taxes? Do they have the capacity? I think that's a major problem. That's one. The second major problem of the FIRS and other tax bodies in the country, that is the subnational tax agencies, is also the issue of leakages. So you find that even the FIRS, they underdeclare the taxes that they collect. That's on the one hand. Then there are multiple agencies of government collecting tax without coordination. So you have corruption going through the process, leakages and all of that. And then you have people flouting policies. So they give waivers, without sunset clauses. They give waivers to companies and say, oh, build this road with the tax you should have paid. Build this road, and that building of the road goes on for years on end. In the end, the road is not built, but that company hasn't been paying taxes, but probably have been, some persons might have been benefiting from the government from the company not paying taxes. So they have all those issues that are there, and then, the capacity to be able to, put in place the right kinds of taxes to be paid. One of the things that have happened in the country is the multiplicity of taxes in the country. And that's why you hear this government talking about streamlining and bringing it down to 20. That so many taxes collected, many of them is even worse. It's horrible at the federal level. It's worse at the subnational level, where at the local government level, taxes collected are not even brought into equation. All right, the taxes collected at the market is enough, to build the market. Here in Akwa Ibom, the governor had to go and rebuild the Akwa Ibom market. All right, but there is a lot that still needs to be done at that market. What he did was just to create drainage, create a road that is beside it. But if you go into the market, it's an appalling situation to see where you buy your food. And we've talked about this, but the local government to your local government is collecting taxes there every day, and they are not accounting for the whooping sum that they take, the 100 naira, 200 naira, 500 naira, 1,000 naira that they collect from the women at the market. So corruption and leakages is a major thing. That's why there are nations, that don't have the oil that we have. They survive, and the standard of living is so high. It's one of the highest. Take Liechtenstein, for instance. It's a very small country. They don't have oil. All they have there is financial institutions. But the standard of living there is one of the highest in the world. They survive on taxes, effective tax collection, where the people are happy. So that's one. Two, the government themselves hasn't helped the process. So when people pay taxes, let me give you a scenario. So the roads are bad. I pay tax. I expect to drive on a smooth road, but I take my car through bad roads. So I have to change tires, I have to change shocks, I have to change, bearings, I have to change different parts of the vehicle almost every other month, all right, because of bad road, okay? Fuel consumption, fuel price has gone up, that affects my business as well. So if I have a truck, that I have to use for my business, then I'm spending more maintaining that truck, and it's eating into, you know, my money with which I can do business. So you're not helping the businesses to grow, and you want to collect tax. Think about it, yeah. This is where the challenge is for me and this government. They are not thinking, it looks like as if they're thinking from their backsides. That's not the way to think. Every knowing government knows that what you need to do, you know, is build the capacity of your citizens. When citizens are prosperous, the nation becomes prosperous. But they are not looking at that. They're just looking at their ostentatious lifestyles, funding their frivolous spending. Look at Nigeria going through the situation that they're going through. At COP28, we had 1,411 participants.
That's also one of the strongest conversations that we have. One of the strongest conversations.
Yeah, you
but you don't
that.
think, Sahari, you don't think that all of those 1,411 are, you know, actually participants from the federal government? They're going to be NGOs and other agencies interested in attending for themselves.
Oh yeah, there's a list of the participants. You have 138 from the presidency. You have, you know, from different ministries and parastatals, you have representatives. These are all government persons. NGOs are not up to 3 that are there, as it were. And I don't think NGOs that have attended did not attend on the bill of government, so they are not even listed as one of those that are there. You understand? So Nigeria's contingent, official contingent, is 1,411. What bearing are they going to bring? What are they going to discuss? In fact, in the first instance, the issue around COP28, discussing climate change and its impact on the environment and looking to reduce fossil fuel production and consumption. These are rhetorics that are not going to help when the nations like the UK and the US are still prospecting and exploiting fossil fuel, and you think that, and then they are the ones who have, you know, hit up the environment and caused the climate change that there is, you know, when they're not discussing so much as in, you know, how much they're going to give to third world countries like Nigeria that are suffering the adverse effect, you know, of what they have done. That was a jamboree in Dubai. That was a jamboree that the Dubai government have negotiated and gotten, you know, to spike, you know, the economy by the participants who will come, would eat and would feed and would do some level of tourism within that nation. So that's what it is. Nothing tangible is going to come. That Nigeria that is going through dire straits, that does not can't generate the money we generate as IGR and coming from oil is not enough to pay the debt that we owe per month. All right. So that's the nation that has sent 1,411 persons. You know, the only
this
country
further
that
comes back
is
to
Brazil.
This still further comes back to the wasteful.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
This still comes back to the wasteful cost of governance, which we are going to, just in a few minutes to tie back and wrap this up, comes back to the tax waiver conversation. The biggest burden, apart from whether we are generating revenue or not, is the fact that we have a wasteful set of people in governance, and, you know, our monies are just wasting. So let's tie it back. These waivers, is it going to give room for businesses to be able to thrive better in Nigeria as it stands? And the Unitide season is coming, 31 days. By 31st of December, the window for those penalties to be paid will be lifted up. It means that businesses and organizations will go back to status quo. We don't even have the time to talk about organizations that do not even remit the funds generated from taxes paid from different internally generated revenues. So we have a lot of loopholes to address with regards to taxation and tax waiving. Also, to just put it out there, Nigeria loses about 6 trillion naira every year on tax waivers. So what is the best spot for businesses and the federal government with regards to taxation as we wrap up this morning, Sahari?
Thank you. So tax waivers, tax incentives are all part of what we call tax expenditures, which are forfeits to the government, you know, of taxes that should have been paid that they forfeited. And so 6 trillion annually is crazy. You want to look at that. I told you earlier on that the basis for waivers and incentives is to promote, you know, business growth, help to reduce unemployment by getting companies to employ more, and opening up windows of productivity for businesses to be able to produce more so that they can make more money, employ more people, pay more taxes. All right, that hasn't happened. Some of those waivers don't have sunset clauses, that is closures. When does it end? So you have some people who get those waivers years on end, and then when you look at the cost benefit analysis of those tax expenditures, really nothing comes out of that. All right, nothing beneficial to the state and to the people of the country. So what we need to do, first of all, is to number one, government needs to realize that monies from taxes must be used to provide services for the people. The social sector, the education, health, social infrastructures, road constructions. Those are the things that will help every nation, to develop that, and that's what developed nations have done, providing, investments in this sector that has helped to shore up the standard of living in the country, promote economic development. So those are things we need to do. 3, build the capacity of our tax people to understand what tax is all about and how they can use the instrument of taxation, the instrumentality of taxation, to shape the economy of the country and to shore up the standard of living of the country and create prosperity in the country. They aren't doing that. These guys are just about collecting taxes and then spending it on themselves. That's what it is. The reason why they are looking for this, the reason why the president is making a lot of appointees is because he knows he's going to be able to generate taxes, squeezing life out of the citizens to fund their lifestyle of government of patronage. So those are things that we need to do. We need to relook at our tax policies and look at the tax system and see that it is such that it is beneficial to the people. I can't be paying tax and generating my own electricity, my own water, building my own road. I can't do that.
Well, thank you so much, Harry Rudolph, for coming on the show with us this morning and talking about this issue. It was necessary that we educate Nigerians on what the tax waivers on the penalties are. Of course, Harry Rudolph is the chairman of the Civil Society Organization of Nigeria, Akwa Ibom State Chapter. Of course, himself a good governance advocate, and his words are always very important to us here on Spectrum Television. Thank you for your time on Spectrum TV, Rise and Shine this morning.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be with you, Yai.
All right, do enjoy the rest of your day. And that's the much that we can actually take on the Tuesday edition of Rise and Shine this morning. A plethora of conversations that we've had. Please catch up on everything we've talked about on Rise and Shine. Get a good education on the subject of the tax waiver on our YouTube channel, Spectrum Television. Every other platform is available at spectrumtvlive.ng. Until we return to your screens again tomorrow, my name remains Uyai Aniekan. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay blessed. Bye-bye.